This startup founder is building AI that simulates human anatomy for real world outcomes.
Really what we do right now is we will take all of your biomedical data sources and we'll turn them into one biomedical data source.
This is Georgia Witchel, a former Olympic ice climber, professional painter, and the founder of Mantis Biotech, a YC-backed startup simulating human biology by building digital twins based on anatomy and physiology.
Most data sources on the internet are biomedical data sources, and people just haven't been thinking about them that way.
Georgia recently joined us on the Vesting Game Show to talk about her goal of simulating biology to positively impact real-world outcomes.
A patient group for a biomedical or for like a device trial, and you want to unify all of the data for the patient trial. So it really is just like kind of a data unification and analysis platform across all industries focused on biomedical data.
I'm your host, Bryson, and this is Vesting. Were you always like very interested in biotech and the way the body worked? I mean, as of course, you being an athlete, I'm guessing there was always like, okay, injuries and all these things that just come into play when you're like building the perfect body to be able to do what you did at a very high level. But where did your interest for this sort of intersection begin?
I think it comes less from like an interest in biotech and more from like an interest in people. I've always been really, really interested in like how people interact. And I think like biotech is just an extension of that. And so my company is called Mantis Biotech because we study human behavior, but also human biology. And I think like my interest in athletics, my interest in biology, both just kind of stem from my interest in the human experience. And specifically, I think that like computers and computer representation is such a huge part of the human experience that that's kind of where I got into it more, I would say.
Just like the tons of other people that ask you about your professional career as a ice climber, I want to know more about like you, the climber. Like I did a little research, like you were high key cracked, like not even close, like up there skill wise. I even came across, I think it was like a video, and I was like, damn, like this is actually nuts. So like, can you just give me the backstory on like, how'd you get into climbing? How'd you get so good? And just riff on it.
Yeah, for sure. So I started climbing when I was like 8 or 9, because I grew up in San Francisco, and then my parents decided that they didn't want to raise kids in downtown San Francisco, which is really valid because high school is really hard there. So they moved us to Colorado, to like a really rural part of Colorado. And my mom, like the first day that I got to Colorado, my mom was like, we're going to take you to like a rock climbing camp. And so she brought me to the rock climbing camp, and I just kind of never left. Like I was like, I think this is good enough. Like this will get me through the next 10 years. I was like very not happy about like leaving San Francisco and moving to rural Colorado. So I was like, I think I'm just going to bunker down in this climbing gym for the next 12 years. And that's exactly what I did. And so I climbed every single day. And I ended up like getting relatively good at it. I was like not particularly popular because I was a huge nerd. And then in 2018, we started to see like an Olympic presence for normal climbing. And then like around 2017 for me, I had like a horrible fall. And like injured my back, and then I was like, oh, it's fine. I think I can keep climbing. And then I immediately fell again and injured my neck. And then I was
oh my God.
Yeah, it was really bad. I had like a horrible concussion. Like it was actually when I injured my back. Do you remember when the Catalan government had like the vote on the referendum?
No.
In 2016, there was like the Catalan, which is like a small like area of Spain, was voting on if they were going to like secede from Spain, but they were like a huge revenue producer, so the Spanish government like really didn't want that to happen. And so the day that they were voting on the referendum just happened to be the day that I was climbing in Catalonia and like fell and broke my spine. And so I was like in the hospital in Catalonia when I was like 16 or 17. And I remember like lying on my back, like in just like horrible pain because all the hospitals were like shut down and they weren't giving anyone medical attention because they were all voting. And it was like this really big question about whether
crazy.
It was like, they were like, oh, are we going to go into a civil war? And I was just like lying on my back and I was like, oh my God, this is going to make such a good college essay.
Oh my.
And it did.
I have to ask you, right? Like two questions to follow up, because I feel like I could just ask you about this experience all day. The first one is, at what point did you realize you had gotten like ridiculously cracked at climbing? And then the second one was, what was going through your head after you have this insane fall? Like at that point, were you just like, hey, I think I'm done with this? Or did you like think you could have died?
So actually when I first fell, or when I fell the second time, I did think I had died because I was wearing a helmet and I ended up falling head first directly into the ground. And so there was this moment when my like helmet shattered around me. And I thought it was like my skull. And so I remember like I basically what happened was I was climbing and my feet got stuck and I didn't have any protection. I was like free soloing. Not exactly, but like basically. And I fell like 12 feet. My feet stayed on. They came out. Like I fell directly onto my head. My helmet shattered. I like fell down this really big ravine. And I like was sitting at like the base of this ravine, like sitting there. And I like when I fell, I had completely flipped around from everyone. So I'm just looking at this like beautiful mountain. And I was like, I've died. It's like quite unfortunate. And I started shouting. I was like, oh, am I dead? And then my climbing partner was like, no, you're not dead. You're okay. And then I got up and I was like, oh, okay, I'm fine. And then I was like, okay, well, I was like working on like a really hard climb that was going to be like a very big deal if I was able to like send the climb. And so I was like, I think I just like want to keep climbing. And so I ended up just finishing the climb actually and like getting back on and continuing through it. And then I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I actually do have a horrible concussion. And then as like the concussion started to get worse and worse, I was like, yeah, it's probably time for me to start like exploring other career options.
This insane idea of simulating the human body and creating like a digital twin. I would love it if you could just give me like a deep elaboration of like for myself, right? If I had a digital twin, I'd be able to simulate. Could you simulate like my health over 10 years based on what I'm doing? Like, I'm just so intrigued by this idea that you can know all the possible scenarios of what my future could look like based on things like my biomarkers today.
Mm-hmm. So it's less of like a future simulative product. That's definitely where we're moving in terms of as like a company. But at the end of the day, like we're not a deep tech company. We're like a revenue focused company. And so I think like really what we do right now is we will take all of your biomedical data sources and we'll turn them into one biomedical data source. And a lot of people struggle with like, what is a biomedical data source? And they feel like that's like bottlenecking in some way. And in reality, like most data sources on the internet are biomedical data sources and people just haven't been thinking about them that way. So for example, if there's a transcript of this meeting that we're having or this like show episode, that audio transcript is biomedical data because it's data of like my interaction with you. Or I'm wearing a Whoop right now. So that's an example of two biomedical data streams that are being collected from just this conversation that we're having. And when we go our two separate ways, like those two biomedical data sources will separate. I'll never have access to the recording. You'll never have access to my Whoop data, but you would have a much more enriched understanding of our interaction if you were able to compare the sentiment analysis of our audio data with my heart rate and sweat data from my Whoop. So a lot of companies are really interested in the additional analysis you can get from this like combined data source approach. So an example of this is, let's say that you're running a sales team. Every single day, your sales team is going to be wearing some sort of wearable device. They're going to have video data of them on a series of calls, and they're going to have audio and sentiment data of them interacting with customers. By unifying those three data sources, you can provide a sales team with a lot of really targeted feedback as to how they can increase their ability to close sales. For example, you could say like, oh, like these are the types of conversations where your sales associate struggles the most. This is where you see the increased heart rate. This is where you see like the changed sentiment. So like that's an example. You could have like a pro sports team and you're looking at their biomedical data and you're unifying their heart rate data or their like sweat data with positional data of them when they're engaged in play. You could have like a patient group for a biomedical or for like a device trial, and you want to unify all of the data for the patient trial. So it really is just like kind of a data unification and analysis platform across all industries focused on biomedical data.
That makes pretty much anybody your customer, which is like the beauty of this is like health is important. And I'm sure you could get even granular, like more granular, for example, with this conversation. I mean, I don't know the medical ins and outs, but I'm sure there are ways where you could have, someone's heart rate, listen to them breathe, or understand how they converse, and be able to use that plus biomarkers to like understand like, okay, well, maybe this person it could be diagnosed for this thing or that thing. I don't know, but it seems like the TAM feels almost endless when you put it in the way of like, you can connect your health data with everything that you do to get a better understanding of like the good, the bad, the optimize, what needs work, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like all problems in startups can be broken down into like hair on fire. I think it's like hair on fire, like never before possible, or like distribution. And so we're very much like in the field of no, like you can run this type of analysis and it is really valuable. And that is kind of like where we fall as a company. So it's a really large TAM, and the difficulty falls in convincing people of the value of the product because
Yeah.
it's not like necessarily something that people are used to thinking about or dealing with.
With such a large TAM, how do you manage and strategize on which types of ICPs to focus on at such an early stage?
Whoever reaches out to us, we are usually just like, okay, let's do like R&D with you guys.
That's pretty interesting. When you think of like, for example, if you were to use your own product and let's say North Star is, we want to look like this in 12 months, or we want to look like this by the end of the winter batch. Like, what do you think your biggest goal between now and demo day is for your company product wise?
I just like would love to scale from a sales perspective, like penetrate more industries, and close more contracts and grow as a company.
Do you see a world where you guys would work with like governments, like defense tech and things of that sort? Because that's also something where I'm like, damn, this would be cool. Like, if, like, for example, what happened with the whole Venezuela thing and the soldiers. Like, imagine if you had all of this biomarker data combined, where it's like the audio from the transcription of them going in there to grab the president, plus the biomarker data from like a whoop. I feel like you could just there's so many options with what you could do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a special forces and mission planning software for sure.
That's so dope, man. I'm excited for this. Like, you got me wondering, just like, or do you see this as like purely B2B, or do you want to go consumer route at the exact same time?
I think consumers are a lot less interested in analyzing their data than people seem to believe, especially in San Francisco. So I think
Hmm.
we're actually interested in scaling in the opposite direction. For example, moving into larger and larger corporations. Even above B2B, we're more of an enterprise company.
I love this. I didn't think of it like before we had this call. I was like, data simulation. What does she mean? Like, what do all these things do? What is the most interesting piece of data that you could gather from a human that goes beyond what you would have in relation to traditional biomarkers like Whoop?
I think something that people don't do a lot that we find really valuable is synthesizing video and audio data. For example, you can pull out like sentiment analysis with like eye tracking data to see like how engaged a person is in a call, and then you can use that to do like engagement for sales if you're running like some sort of like online sales platform.
Interesting. So like you could almost, like, a scenario could be, hey, you're running this on some, like, let's say you're a consumer company that runs like a TikTok shop live. You could almost run something like this on your TikTok shop live and get a very good understanding of like the moments when maybe it's a punchline and your creator is doing one thing, or, to your point, eye tracking. You could get super granular to understand kind of what kind of framework or mindset a creator needs to be in to be ultra successful when selling online.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you would probably have to do it in like a focus group type setting, just because I think it's like you can't record people like that. But if you want to like test out like where people look or like how people feel about certain features, like a lot of the time they're not honest in focus groups, and so we can
Yeah.
get around that problem.
This is dope. Something that I'm super excited for, because it is completely, it's like, it's wild to me because I just found myself scrolling through and I was like, she is actually like absurd at art. And if she wanted a career just doing art, she could probably do that. So Georgia, like, give me the backstory on like art. Was this always something that you were into? Like when did you just realize like, oh man, like I'm like cracked at this and it's fun? It's kind of similar to ice climbing where you're just good at stuff.
Yeah, so when I first quit ice climbing, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Um, And whenever I don't know what I'm gonna do, I go for like a lot of walks, and I'll just like kind of think when I'm on these walks.
Yeah.
And I was walking one day, and I was like, I think I will try painting. And then it's very similar to ice climbing. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna paint every single day. And then I just started painting every single day. And I just kind of got, I think, again, really lucky that I just happened to have selected something that I was pretty good at. And there really wasn't more to it. I just kind of made a painting every single day for like 3 years. And then one day I was like, well, I should probably try to do like something with this, because I was like, someone's going to ask me what I did during college. And it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't studying. And so there was kind of like this big hole in my resume, and I was like, I should probably like, present this to the world in some way. And so I ended up publishing like a zine with like a museum in LA. And then I segued that into I actually ended up getting published internationally. I really like to write. I have like a relatively successful Substack.
Do
And
you
so
write
I was
about
like,
startups or just life?
I do like a weekly creativity roundup.
Oh, cool.
And so I just ended up publishing some stuff, and some of the publications went pretty well. And then I was like, I ended up signing like a book deal, and then I ended up writing the book, and then I just kind of published the book, and then my company got funded. So I was like, I suppose my career as an artist is kind of going to wind down slightly, and now I just kind of paint for fun on the weekends.
Yeah,
I will
you're
sell paintings to VCs, and that is actually very, very helpful for raising money. They love getting paintings.
wait, so you do sell your work.
Yeah, I definitely I'm out right now because I sold it all during my raise,
Yeah.
but making more.
Was that like a were there any VC stories where it's like, hey, if you invest, I'll throw in a nice painting that you can hang on your wall?
Uh, yeah, yeah, I would say there I had a lot more paintings before I started raising than I have now.
Well, you're gonna have to like get moving because demo day is coming around the corner, and you might need some more paintings to use as your like negotiating tokens.
I'm working on it. I gave my sister a bunch of my paintings, and whenever I'm like really desperate for like a good one to like bribe a VC or something,
Yeah.
I'll usually just kind of go to her house and steal it.
It's so crazy that like it feels like you have multiple different careers, and like you don't have to be one thing, right? Like I think we've all come to the conclusion that you can have multiple layers. But one thing that stands out about you from this conversation that like makes me incredibly bullish on you and the company you're building is it seems like you get like obsessed with like the thing that's like intriguing you at that moment. It's like, oh man, I want to paint, but I don't just want to paint. Like I want to be in it. And then you just get really good. Like, do you watch tutorials? Like, how did you get good very like quickly?
I just I think like it really just stems from like a love of what you do. I think like so many people do things for something other than like love of the game.
Mm.
Right? Like so many people paint because they want to show someone their paintings. And like something that I write about a lot in my book, and something that I feel very strongly about like computer science, is that I feel like I actually do feel like a very deep emotional connection to what I'm doing. And so, for example, like when I'm painting, I feel like I like have a relationship with like the art of painting.
Wow.
And that makes me feel like I'm not working towards anything. There's no end goal in sight. It's just kind of simply like a thing that I'm performing, and it becomes like very meditative, I would say. And like, yeah, I think that definitely does result. It has like blowback, but then it also has like very positive aspects of it. And I think some of the blowback is that I can be like not very results oriented at times, right? Like I'm just
Hmm.
like, oh, look at this cool thing that I've built. And I don't, and similar to like my first YC application, like I don't really think like what is the TAM of this? Like what is the market? How do I make money? How do I get customers? I'm just like very obsessed with the building itself. And like with painting, like I didn't do a good job of like selling, monetizing, or marketing my art. Um, but I do think that like at the end of the day, like to get very good at something very quickly, you just have to be very in love with what you're doing and not
Hmm.
very concerned with the results of what you're doing.
Do you think in the age of social media, people spend too much time doing things that other people might find interesting? Because it feels like, at least, I mean, you kind of taken this like contrary and unconventional route to everything. It's like simulating humans through biology. It's not like the sexiest path in the AI space. Finding ice climbing before like it was even a part of the Olympic team, like before the Olympic team had a team in the United States, like all of these things that just like, oh, well, I just like doing this. Even painting, it's like people go out and they just get on social media or they find like, you know, very high dopamine activities where it's like painting is like patience. Do you feel like you've learned a lot from this unconventional path?
Yeah, I actually think for me that that's just because I'm like a woman. And like you when you're a minority in a field, you just have so few role models to look up to. So
Mm,
once you get through that like initial barrier of like, okay, like I'm gonna be in computer science, or like I'm going to be the one person at Harvey Mudd who's just like obsessed with painting all the time. You have like no North Star. You have like no one to look up to. And so you're kind of just like, okay, like I guess I'm just gonna do whatever is like a little bit. And then I also think it kind of just like runs in my family. Like
yeah.
my family has this like horrible, like generations back were like known for having some issues with like authority and like doing what people tell us. And like for example, like my mom was born on like a commune in
Yeah.
Northern California, even though my grandmother was born into like a very like fine family, specifically because she was like, screw everyone, like I'm just gonna go do whatever I want. And again, I always say like I think that I actually just got incredibly lucky that the things that I like doing happen to be the things that like make a lot of money, because I
Yeah.
think that there's like another world where I just like really really like to like sit on my ass and do nothing, or like I really really like to just play video games all day. And if that is like what I wanted to do, I would absolutely just play video games all day, and like no one would be able to stop me, and that would be really bad.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to having this kind of not really a fuck authority mindset, but like I am going to autonomously just do whatever I want and have authority over who I am, regardless of what other people are thinking or doing. I think that's
Totally.
super
I think
compelling.
yeah, the thing that I always say is like everyone should have a baseline willingness to go live in the forest as a hermit. And the closer you are to that being 100%, I would go live in the forest and be a hermit, the more autonomy you have in society, because everything that happens, you're just like, well, worst case scenario, I'll just go and live in the forest.
You know, it's crazy. I had this this was like my saying before I moved to Miami back in 2021 when I launched my startup. We raised like 4.5 million. It failed miserably a couple years later, but I had like did the whole traditional path, went to college, got a degree, was working as a software engineer, and I was living with my grandmother at the time, like doing really well, like making like, you know, close to 200K, living in her basement. She'd bring me 3 meals a day, and it was great. And then I was like ready to go and do something else. And I was like, well, I should just move to Miami. I started this company, like let's just go and do something. And the pros and cons, like I was bringing up in my head were like, okay, if this works out, like great. But worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, then like I'm not gonna die or anything, but like I'll just go back home and like figure it out again. Like you almost like kind of lose the thought of what if the bad thing happens, and you just think like, okay, if the bad thing is not that bad, then like it's never as deep as we try to make it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm like, okay, if my startup fails, like literally like the thing I would be like most worried about is probably like telling people that my startup failed.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and that's really not that bad. Um, like you can do that. If you're scared to tell your friends that your startup failed, they're probably not your friends, and that's
Yeah.
probably really what you're scared of, is like facing that reality. And once you like adopt that mindset, you become much more willing to do like much more crazy stuff, I would say.
I 100% agree with you. And to like jump back into your startup, you recently started the winter batch of Y Combinator. I would love to just get your like, what is your reaction after like the first, it's like first week or so?
Yeah, I love Y Combinator. I
I
think
can
that
see by the
like
jacket too. That shit is fire.
yeah, no, I know they've really upped their swag game. Y Combinator is amazing. It I think like they've been changing a lot recently, right? It actually has their increased batch size has done something really interesting, which is that they've almost kind of created this cap on seed deals in Silicon Valley. Like if you look at Y Combinator's total control over seed rounds in Silicon Valley, like they're clearly heading for 100% of the startups. Like they are going to be the main player in the startup space. And I feel like I am the beginning of that like new era that we're seeing. And it's really interesting to be this very early adopter of the new technology of raising and starting a company and like being young almost. Like it's very interesting watching this like infrastructure be put into place for processing huge volumes of new startups and like having like just like that set up, I think has been like the most interesting part of Y Combinator for me for sure. I think another thing that's really interesting to me is that my dad is also a founder, and
Oh,
he
cool.
was like working for a company like as one of the like founding members. I don't think he's like credited as a founder in 2016. So this is the first time that it's like my company is like a legacy company because like it's a multi-generational thing. And so that's
Yeah.
really interesting because I'll ask like my dad and the like actual CEO of the company, this guy Travis, like
Mhm.
what it was like for them in 2016. And that has been really interesting.
When you look at, and you touched on something really cool, right? Like the legacy of like your dad was the startup founder and now you're doing it. Do you feel like, and this is, I guess, a cool bio question, that like genetically the inherent risk ability or his ability to have like a high risk tolerance is something that you might have adopted just by default?
Yeah, I would say like 100%. Because there's never a question. I mean, he's also been like so helpful in so many ways. Like all of my legal docs that I use are just I asked him for all his legal docs and like
Yeah.
changed the name to my company. I don't know if I should say that on television, but oh well. But yeah, I think it's like if anything that was like the expectation is it's like don't like if you're gonna do anything, do what you want to do and be original, right? Like absolutely, I would say.
What was his reaction to like you telling him, "Hey, I'm gonna be like a professional entrepreneur now because like I'm in YC"?
It was actually the opposite where I was like, "Don't worry, dad. Like I'm going to get a job. Like I'm not trying to just be like you. Like I'm not going to be like a grifter and live in your basement." And he was like, "You need to like kind of get your shit together as an entrepreneur because you are like not fully committed to this and you need to lock in and commit." And I was like not really ready to commit because I was like, "Oh, I like it's for me like I think like that was never like something that I was like really interested in doing until like him and Y Combinator and a bunch of other people in my life were like, you need to start a company because you're never going to be able to work for someone."
It's like everyone yelling at you like, "Yo, you have a great idea. Go fucking do something." Y Combinator,
Yeah,
Jared's like, "Hey, this is a great idea. You need to lock the fuck in so I can let you in next batch." And then boom, here you are.
yeah, exactly. I think unlike most founders that I know, and actually unlike my dad, because he doesn't have like he's not super technical. Like he has a degree in computer science, but he's like in the traditional CEO role.
Mhm.
Um, I like everyone had to yell at me to start a company because I really love to build, but I really hate to sell. And so unlike most founders where they're like trying really hard to sell and they have a product and they're trying to grow it and are like struggling to like build, it was kind of flipped for me where I had a bunch of people who were like, you need to go be an entrepreneur,
Mm.
not just like an engineer.
Yeah, like you're great at building things, but now it's like go build something that you can commercialize in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly.
My last question on this segment, I would love to know. You said you previously, the first time you applied to YC, you didn't get in. What do you think was the main difference between your first application and the second one? And what advice would you give to somebody who got rejected from YC and is looking to get accepted the second time around?
Get a paying customer. It's really simple. If you don't have someone technical on your team, get someone technical on your team, not just technical, but someone who has project expertise.
Mm.
Um, if you have someone technical and you have a product, get someone who is paying you to use it. If you have both of those things and you still didn't get in, switch your idea to something with a larger TAM. And if you have all of those things and you still didn't get in, they give you that advice post interview for a reason. Take that advice.
Damn, you just dropped so much free game. Like, I love asking that question because yesterday I had a founder who was in space tech, and he said something similar. He was like, either you need to have someone that's like insanely technical or be that person, because if not, like your odds are almost zero. It's just like you're just dropping crazy game for founders.
Yeah, I think the worst advice they give founders is you just have to keep trying, and like the only thing that's important is that you don't give up. And that's not true at all. Like you have to be willing to put down the shovel, because if you've been digging for months and you haven't struck gold, it's not going to be another foot down. Like you have to go find a different plot of land. Like you have to take whatever they're saying
Yeah.
and you have to like take their advice and apply it and change your approach constantly, because the world is really big and things move really fast. So if your current approach isn't working, you need to go find an approach that will. You don't just keep throwing shit at the wall.